Well, let me ask you this: since you teach people all the time,
Yeah.
how do you teach them without that? Like, how do you start people? You get a kid in there to teach them
What
music.
instrument?
I've wondered about that a lot. Is like how to go about teaching, because I do have knowledge, but I've tried to teach.
It's kind of like punk. Like get them into it.
It's a different skill.
So you just teach them a song. So like if I have a kid who wants to play guitar, how do you start if you're
start
not
with some chords?
Okay.
And I'll talk about how these chords go together.
Okay.
Do you hear how this chord relates to this chord? It has a relationship with that chord.
Okay.
And so here's some. You figure out how quickly, with that kid at their age or whatever, how deep you can get into it.
Right.
At a certain adolescent age, you don't want to go too deep into the.
You want to keep it fun,
understanding
still,
it.
so they're just grooving and learning. And
you know what I've found? I've taught certain kids from their adolescence, like 8 or 7. On multiple occasions, if I can keep that kid till he's 17, all the things I've been teaching them just make sense. And they tell me, before that, it didn't make any sense to me. Their brain wasn't ready for it.
You know what?
You cross a certain point.
That's a learning concept that I actually read about recently, and it's made me think about jiu-jitsu, of course. But I read about it in the field of math. And the saying that I took away from it was this. See if I have to get it right. Fluency doesn't come from understanding, but understanding can come from fluency. So like we can sit around and talk about and understand it, and the way that I saw that, like in teaching, it is like if I'm teaching statistics, I can make the students understand the concept and they can watch me do it.
Yeah.
And then they can go and mess it up because they don't have fluency.
Right.
And they'll say, I understood it whenever you were showing it.
Sure.
And it's like, because I have fluency in doing the stuff.
That's true, yeah.
And what I was imparting to you was understanding, not fluency.
Man.
And so what you're saying there is that as they gained the fluency, the understanding came with it. And that's kind of what you're saying is the way you learned. Is like,
absolutely.
If you try to take the understanding and then say, well, that means now I can play guitar. No. It just means you understand how people play guitar.
Like that's what happened.
You can't play
when Derek and I.
But once you can play, you de facto understand it. You have to understand it once you can play.
You have to give it time too.
And it can actually be a huge stumbling block if you. So Derek and I went to Musicians Institute in LA, and the kids that did the worst usually were ones that they started
knew the most.
They didn't have much real world experience, but they had well, technically it goes over here or does something, but then you put them in a room with people and they would get so confused if something changes, and something always changes when you're with different individuals being creative, playing music. And if you can't flow with that, it doesn't matter what the numbers and formulas you've got in your head. If you can't be fluid with it.
It's like, I mean, just to put it bare bones is the most basic way that I can describe it is like you can tell somebody how to swim, or you can drop them in the water.
Yeah.
And when you're dropped in the water, you have to swim.
Yeah.
But if you tell them okay, you want to keep your hands kind of like this, you want to relax and paddle this way and kick your feet.